Hello, welcome back everyone to the Family Entrepreneur Life Live show. I'm your host, Ariana Sylvester, the better half of the Tom and Ariana team. And today I've got a special guest with us, Karla Hoffman, and she is a copywriting expert. So we are super excited to have her on with us today because I know that that's an area a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, that copywriting, the elusive copywriting. And a little background, Karla has spent the last 8 years copywriting for entrepreneurs. Her idea of success is having a reader nod in agreement. Right? With 4 kids and 2 dogs, life is beautiful chaos. When she's not writing, she spends time reading, gaming, and building blanket forts with her kids. I love it. You're speaking our language with the blanket forts.
Totally.
Welcome.
It's life. It's life. Hello. It is everything. It's the biggest, it has become the biggest deal. Like in the past couple months, it's like the big deal. So much so that I have been thinking back to all those epic forts you build when you're a kid and how it would be great to have something like a bunk bed. I'm like, but we had bunk beds to use and that was so great because you could get them really tall and, it's a whole thing in my house.
I love it. I love it. When your kids are passionate about something, it's so much fun. Ours love blanket forts, except the 2-year-old always knocks them over. So then the 5-year-old is very upset.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. It's important.
All right. So, Karla, we're so glad to have you on the show. Why don't you fill in your background a little bit for us and give everyone your family dynamic and a little bit more about you?
Okay. So I have been online for 8 years. I was an accidental copywriter in kind of the same way you were an accidental entrepreneur. I literally started out as kind of right about the time when America was going through their market crash and big economic crisis, and people were really reevaluating the traditional, get a job at corporate and work the path and build your retirement account. And all of a sudden that didn't really mean a lot to a lot of people because they have lost a ton. And so everybody around me who had taken this really, really like traditional American, safe, predictable path were having to start over. And I was in my 20s and I thought, maybe I don't want to take that path then. So maybe I want to do something different. And I wanted to spend more time with my family. I spent so much time commuting and I just wanted something different. So I started looking around for things I could do at home. I don't know where I even got the idea, to be honest. I probably saw it on TV. I mean, it's probably some crazy Dateline segment about, the first work from home. Who knows? Who knows what it was? But I was really excited about it. And I kept telling people, like, I want to work at home. There's got to be a job I can do at home. And somebody told me there are no, like, legit work at home jobs. And that's all it took. I was determined. I'm going to find it. And I'm going to make it work. So I found myself in a forum. And it was for internet marketers, actually, way back in the day when you could literally do keyword research, throw up a website, and make like actual money on Google AdSense. No joke. You could make a website like 4 pages just for the keywords, and it could be ugly. It could read like garbage. It didn't matter. People made a whole living like this. They just like repeated the process. So I come in and I'm like, I could write. And I did. And my first article was like $20 and it was great. It was the best $20 ever. And then I fell into copywriting along the way. Someone just asked, hey, can you write sales copy? And I have always been one of those people that doesn't think of themselves as a sales, very good at that. And I am. I actually was.
Well, that's
like,
awesome.
Well, wait a minute. It's like, just a conversation, like, oh, wait a minute. It's just helping them get from point A to point B and providing a solution to a problem. Oh, I could do that. I could do that all day long. So yeah, that's how I fell into copywriting and it's been great. I moved over from internet marketers to agency, and then from agency a couple of years ago, I decided that, I hang out with entrepreneurs all the time. That's who I hang out with. So about the time I joined this grew actually. And I thought, I'm just going to work with them. Like, what if I could just hang out with them and work with them all day?
Mm-hmm.
That would be the dream. And so I switched to entrepreneurs, and yeah, that's how I ended up here. I love it. I absolutely love it. I read about it all the time. Yeah, but I'm a big fan of making it simple, and so I think I kind of have. There have been times when I've questioned, do I want to keep doing copywriting? Because I don't know. You know how it can
Yeah.
be. Sometimes you're taking steps towards a goal, and then you realize that the compass was pointing you one way, and you really don't like the way that looks
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, and or don't like the people that are hanging out there. You're like, do I want to hang out there? Do I want to do all of that? And for me, it was more about the kind of people you work with as you scale up.
Yeah.
And I've always been a big fan of working with people who are like in the first couple of years of business, not necessarily making $1 million. So not that also means not necessarily paying their copywriter $10,000 for a sales page, right? So I've had to do a little bit of searching, and that's where I'm at now, and it's great. It's really cool to be able to help people who are doing it themselves. Really, because a lot of us do that. A lot of
Yeah.
us do everything, especially in the first couple of years until we're making over six figures. We kind of almost should be,
Yeah.
doing most of the things. And I think that's becoming um, the narrative now. People are talking about that now, but 2 years ago it was very like, outsource everything,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it's a cool place to be in right now in this.
Yeah. Well, and I love it because it's such an important skill that I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs don't have. And when you are starting a business from the ground up and you're kind of wearing all of the hats when you're getting started, copywriting is one of the areas that many, many, many people struggle with.
Yeah,
And I know, part of that is not knowing right away who your ideal clients are or who you're speaking to. So it's hard to, in your head, figure out like, oh, who am I talking to? But another
yeah,
part of that is just figuring out the things that you should be saying and the way that you should be saying them, but still like infusing it with your own personality and who you are. Like seriously, I still struggle with it. I'm getting much better than I was, but still, like every day I have to double check myself. Like, okay, is this the right? Am I saying this the right way? Is the message coming across the way that I want it to?
yeah,
And does it sound like me, or does it sound like some weird person off the internet? Like I want
yeah,
it to sound
yeah.
like I'm talking to that person in the email. It's personal.
It
So
is.
I think
It is.
it's definitely a huge need for people to go out and learn, some of the basics of copywriting.
Yeah,
And then when you get
yeah.
to a certain point in your business too, if it makes sense to go out and hire someone to do some of the
Oh
copywriting for you,
yeah. Oh yeah.
especially if you figure out it's something you're not good at or you
Oh
don't
yeah.
want to.
Oh yeah. I think that yeah, it's more than just sales pages. You know what I mean? It's more than landing pages. So because you're doing
Mm-hmm.
it all the time, like you said, it is something worth knowing. But at what point do you outsource? And, I think people question that a lot. If you're sitting and staring at it and really struggling for hours and hours and hours, then maybe get a little bit of help. But
Yeah.
to turn it over, I always tell people, unless you're paying money for traffic, like a lot of money for traffic, you could probably do it yourself
Yeah.
and be okay. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's a big, I think people get caught up on the words. And I've seen some emails and landing pages that were, ugly, that convert great, that are not. I've seen spelling errors and grammatical error. It doesn't. At the end of the day, it's all about how the person feels when they read it.
Exactly.
Do they feel
And
like you're talking to them? Are you presenting something that is relevant to them? And it's a tricky thing to nail because it is very situational.
mm-hmm.
It's like the goal is always to present something that is, at the right offer at the right time to the right person. And that's like, whoa,
Yeah. Like
that's
how
kind
do
of
you
a
do that?
heavy thing. Right, right. So it's like, Yeah, it's tricky. It is very tricky. But I think the most important thing is communicating and the way that they feel. So if they feel like you're talking to them and it makes sense to them, your offer, and you've been able to kind of walk them through why you think it's the best to relieve their pain, as long as that's their actual pain, and
Mm.
as long as your offer is actually going to relieve it, um, then you're probably fine. You know what I mean?
It
Like
doesn't have to be perfect.
it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that's a big thing. And I think we get caught up on that. I'm a total, like I was saying yesterday, I'm a
Yeah.
total procrastinator and a
See?
perfectionist. That is like, I will sit and edit things 10 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
and
need to
we,
take
I
my own
mean,
advice.
I am guilty, but I will admit I have gotten so much better since jumping into business and then especially being in the online space. I am a perfectionist and
Yeah.
I have some OCD tendencies where I like would get myself so worked up if things weren't exactly as I wanted them to be. And obviously the first thing that cured that is having children.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because,
Gotta let it go.
things just aren't perfect
Yeah.
a lot of the time when you have kids. The house is a mess. You're never on time anymore. Like, it's just part of
Yep.
life. So that's helped me a lot with giving up some of those, control issues that would get me so worked up. And then also just seeing, like, in real life, in action, when you're not perfect, like, people don't care. As
No, they
long as
don't.
you're being genuine, as long as you're
They
being
don't.
authentic, and as long as you're still coming from a place of, like, I want to be valuable to my audience and to the people that I'm offering things, they're going to give you, a one-off when you make a mistake,
Oh,
especially if you
yeah.
own up to it.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Like, I even have on my notes here that I was going to talk about how always suggest that on social media and emails and interviews, you talk about your flaws. Like, be
yes.
honest. Your personality, the things that make you human, they're that's gold. That's really, really important. And that is a big part of the, know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be perfect. That should be very, very messy. People like messy. I
Yes,
know. It's like now people are realizing. I was just talking to so my oldest is 15 and my stepdaughter, and she is, a big fan of YouTube, everything YouTube. So yeah,
aren't
we
they
talk a
all?
lot of, they all are. I know, even the 3-year-old is really, if
Yep.
I'm being honest. But we were talking about how people are moving away from the really highly edited, really
Mm.
polished, very put together videos. They're doing more live streaming and they're doing more kind of randomness, and the bloopers, sometimes the bloopers get
Yeah.
more views than the actual videos. And it's because people want to see the mess because that is relatable, And I know
Yeah.
you probably felt this way where we read copy or we see a video and we think that looks great, but that's not relatable to me,
Yeah.
especially as a parent. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago when there was a big, like, mompreneur became a thing. And it
Yeah. I
was
can't.
Jacqueline and I used to talk about this a lot, actually. And like, it was like this big thing, but it was very like mompreneur in high heels and mompreneur like really put together. And that's great because there are moms that are like that. Not
Mm-hmm.
I. Not I. And I'm
That
like,
I'm with
wait a
you.
minute. Like my
In my
house.
Ninja Turtle shirt. I'm
Yeah,
totally
yeah,
with you.
yeah, totally. I'm like, my house is a mess. My kids, my daughter looks like a wildling off of Game of Thrones. I mean, and acts like one if I'm, honestly. And like, yeah, which is great. There's
Yeah.
room for all of us. And to find out that people actually do really like the reality and the behind the scenes is kind of relieve some of the pressure. Like, I don't know if you felt like that. I definitely
Oh
have felt
gosh, yeah.
like, oh wow, like it doesn't have to be perfect. So my emails don't have to be perfect. Nothing has to be perfect.
Yeah.
It can
Yeah,
just be
that's eased
real.
a lot of the guilt and a lot of the pressure off of me, like even just figuring out my role and what the business and what I want to be in the
Yeah,
business and kind of how we want to run the business, and knowing that I don't have to be perfect and I can be myself. And we can kind of do this, and you're constantly testing what works in your
right.
business and what doesn't. So I mean, it only makes sense to not worry about every single thing being perfect all the time, because you don't know what works until you try it. So
that's true. And you also, I think when you do worry about getting it perfect, you don't put out as much too, because you're spending so much time editing and perfecting that you don't, and then you're missing opportunities. And, numbers show that it takes like 8 times before people will buy. I just read I love to read the marketing reports. I'm such a geek for that kind of stuff. I love it. And so I was reading this marketing report and it said something like, when people land online and they are looking at content, they want educational content like almost 3/4 of the time. There's only one like small, like 1/4 of what you put out that should be very like sales focused. Like, okay, here it is. Here's a big solution. And maybe those you want to be a little more polished, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I say go with it. Whatever's going to help you get the message out there is really what. And as long as you come across genuine, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Well, and I think part of the polishing happens as you're doing it, like as you are in real life,
God, yeah.
Putting your content out there. Obviously, even Tom said it the other day. He was like, I was watching your live show and I went back and watched the first one. And the change from the very first one I did this summer to now is like hugely apparent. But the thing is, if I hadn't started, I would never have gotten to this point. If I had waited until everything was perfect, until I had my perfect questions down and the perfect format of the show and the perfect intro and the perfect outro, I would never have launched the live show. So sometimes it's just, just go into it. You have the foundation, you have something that you think will work, try it. And if it does, then you can kind of polish and improve upon it as you go. And you're also showing people, in your audience, like they're watching your growth and they're seeing you do things, which encourages them to go out and do the very same thing.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. I agree. And I think that, like we were talking about before we went live, I think that people get caught up on the big story, and it's kind of back to our topic today. The storytelling is really kind of hot right now. It's a hot topic. People are really coming to the point where they know now that stories are where it's at. They know that to have a good story, you need, drama, and you need the hero, and you need this thing to present to the world, and it has to tie back to you, and it has to, you have to fit into it. But I think that people get really caught on perfecting that one, and where I like to say is that those big stories are great because they are, especially if it ties back to your offer and your business and how you got, like the one you used for your about page. That's important.
Yes.
That belongs on your about page. That's part of your journey. But you're going to change. So the hero will change. The stories will change. I mean, things are going to change. So what do you do at that point? So yeah, you should have one big story about that ties into your offer or ties into why you do what you do. Those are great for sales pages. They're great for about pages, but and even parts of them are really good for landing pages, which I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but I think one of the coolest things is if you can identify like one little part that got you like 2 steps closer. And if your opt-in offer is that fills that need of that part of your journey you're talking about, that is beautiful. Like that's absolutely beautiful. But other than the big story, then what? So you've written this story, you've got it out there, and you go on podcast. You can't rehash the same story 50 times. I mean, you can talk about it at different angles. I mean, obviously, you're going to be in front of different audiences. I would talk more about how my family fit into my work here, but if I was somewhere else, I would be talking about a different angle. So that's true. But other than that, you need other stories. So where does that leave you at that point? I think people feel a little lost on that. Like, how do I come up with these stories over and over? And I think you're doing a really good job of this. And I don't know if you were deliberately read through like Expert Secrets or .com Secrets, or if you're just like your own little genius there.
No, definitely not our own little geniuses. I will claim we read through Expert Secrets.
Okay, so your your sharing of parables, your stories with the kids that you tie back to work, that is really important. I think a lot of people miss that.
Mm,
They, and that's one of the areas that I do suggest being mindful and kind of writing down, like, do you have somewhere written what your values are? Like,
yeah.
what are your values for your brand or for yourself if you're the brand? And have those somewhere so you can relate to them. Because it's not always, I mean, as it's kind of like a muscle, as you write stories, you get better at relating them back to something in your business. But in the beginning, it might not be. And so
Yeah.
have something that you can go back and go, okay, how can I tie this back into, integrity or hope or whatever your big mission and your values are. It's important. And being able to do that, I think, is worth it. That's really, really, that's worth the time. And that's worth taking time to sit and kind of be mindful.
Yeah. I completely agree. Obviously, this is the route
Yeah.
that we went, but it took
Mhm.
us a while to get to this point and to really figure out, part of the reason that we've been so much better with our stories and sharing and like relating things back is because we did go through the exercise to talk about our core values. Like we
Yeah.
wrote a manifesto. We literally sat in the car
Yeah.
before a meeting with our CPA this past spring, and we're like, all right, let's hash this out. We've got 20 minutes before our meeting. What are the things that are important to us and the community that we're trying to create? What are the values that we want to call out here and to attract the people who have those same values? So we sat in the car and we kind of just walked through and talked things out. And
Yeah.
every time we were like, oh yeah, that, totally that, we wrote it down. And
Yeah.
then I luckily I had somebody else's manifesto that had kind of inspired us to do this.
Sure.
Jess Lorimer wrote one for her
Yeah.
community.
So
And
cool.
I was like, okay, well, I really liked how she did this and, how
Yeah.
she pulled out these parts here. And so then I went and took the notes that we had made and kind of sectioned it off, made it sound a little bit more like a story or a poem sort of manifesto. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like, this is everything we want to tell people. This is everything we want people to know about us
Yeah.
and the things that we care about. So that has really helped us when we go to write a blog post, when we go to do a live video, when we go to share a story about the kids or about life in general. Now we can like kind of look back and say, okay, this totally ties into this core value right here, or
Yeah.
this totally ties into this part of the tagline or whatever it may be. But now it's a lot easier to write the corresponding copy when we have a post or a blog post, or if we want to put a landing page up or a sales page. Like we have all of that stuff to kind of bring out and relate back, and it all starts to make sense and connects.
Doesn't it? I know. It's like, it's interesting how one or a couple of exercises can really bring it out. And it doesn't have to be super complicated as you're
No, no.
discovering. It can be very simple. And I think that's like when you're watching people come up with all this great copy, this great content, and you're thinking, how do they continue to do this over and over again? Obviously some of it is planning, but some of it
Mm,
is being, you know, mindful
yeah.
and having a purpose for what you're writing. that's
Yeah.
that's kind
Well,
of
and
it's
it's taking
huge.
the thoughts you have out of your head, honestly, in everyday life. Like I will be like, oh
Yeah,
my gosh, this would make for an awesome post. And instead of
yeah,
like just thinking that, I actually write that down and say, okay,
yeah,
I'm going to take 10 minutes later and type up this post. I don't know when I'm going to post it. Maybe I'm going to wait and save it for a different time. Maybe I'm going to immediately jump in and post it right now. But
yeah.
it's taking those thoughts and the everyday life experiences that you're having that relate to your business and using those and showing people this is real life, this is my life, and these are the things that I'm doing, and it relates to the business in this way. And you're creating that connection for them as a part of your audience, and also showing them that they can do the same thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think Russell's books are awesome for
Yeah.
that. I think anybody who is really struggling to connect the dots and not knowing how to create those stories, it would be that's a great one to read.
Yeah,
Both of them.
that's actually that was my first business book ever. It was .com Secrets.
Really?
Yeah.
It was one of mine. I think it was easily to the first three that I ever bought.
It was just an
Uh,
easy read and it broke things down very simply for me. And that was back
did.
before I really was like, I really knew what everything was and was still trying to figure out online
Yeah.
business. And it made so much sense. And then when he came out with Expert Secrets, I actually started reading that one before Tom. And then, we kind of chatted on it together and we walked through the story process. And actually, with Jacqueline, she helped us kind of pull the pieces out of our story that
Good.
were, relevant and important to our brand and our messaging. But yeah, it was so helpful to just have that to reference back. But I think the key is there that you don't have to follow exactly how
Yeah.
things are written and how people tell you to, because, obviously your story, your situation is different and maybe things don't fit exactly into the puzzle pieces that he explains in Expert Secrets, each
Yeah.
chapter and each section. But if you can just take elements from that and
Oh
use
yeah.
that to tell your story, you will be so far ahead. It's been so nice
I
to have that.
I agree. And I think that on the hero part, I think that we are, we're so many different people. I mean, especially here in the group, we are moms and wives and husbands, and we have all these different hats and roles that we play, and so we're not just one hero. I mean, we're one hero in one moment in one story, sure, but I think sometimes people read the book and they think, oh, okay, I've got to get the hero dialed in, and then it's in concrete, and that's
Yeah.
the only person I can be. But you're not going to
Yeah.
be that person, and in a week you're not that person, and that person changes. So it's more theory. It's just like
Exactly.
understand how it works and then make it your own.
Yeah. 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 And I think that just that right there, that quote, understand how it works and make it your own,
Yeah,
applies to everything in your
it does.
business, and especially in the online world with all the different marketing methods and all the different tactics that people talk about. All of that is great, but understand how it works and make it your own is the key to every single one of
Yeah.
those pieces, and copywriting included.
Oh yeah.
Understand how it works and make it your own.
Yeah. It really is. It yeah, it doesn't have to be the perfect polished thing. It doesn't have to be, words don't have to be, exact. It's I like to say that it's more of a science than an art,
Mm,
honestly. And I think there are some people that really like formulas, and there are people who really like templates, and then there are people who that doesn't help them at all.
yeah.
So whatever is going to help you get going and get kind of the ideas churning and get writing is go find that. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And sometimes we just need somebody to look over what we've written. I mean, gosh, that's a whole
Yeah.
thing. I didn't even realize that was a whole, like, that hit me not long ago. It was like a light bulb moment. I don't remember when it was. And I was talking to somebody and they said, hey, do you know if there's somebody we can just have look over things? I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, copywriters offer reviews and audits, but in like a less formal, more affordable way. Yeah, yeah, that should be a thing. That should
Yeah.
really be a thing because I think a lot of people are doing it themselves and they get in front of that, white screen and the cursor's blinking and they're just don't know where to start or start going and they're not sure if all the right parts are in the right order.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions people come across. And I think if I was to say one thing about writing your story is that you should do it often, a lot, and everywhere. I mean, and it's funny because we were talking about the topic and, like how to do it and where to do it. And the where is like everywhere. And I know that's not like a great answer, right? Like, thanks a lot, Karla, for your actionable tips. Uh, but, but seriously, everywhere, emails, social media, sales pages, landing pages, about pages, every single place, everywhere,
Yeah.
because people love it. That's why. I mean, really, we love it. We connect with it. When we are laughing with a story or when we are feel emotion because of a story, we are paying attention,
Yep.
especially when we're laughing. I mean, when we're laughing, we're like literally paying all of our attention. And it's so rare to have attention. And that's what we all want online are, is people's attention just for a minute or two. And stories do that. And they make people understand you and they see you as human. And that is really, 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 really important. It's why we all watch Game of Thrones. I mean, right? It's why we can't, and those moments of like, so I talk to people about stories and kind of when I'm talking to clients, how do you write a good story? And
Mm.
you write a good story by thinking about what emotions you want to evoke. So how do you want them to feel? Like that's in my mind where the starting point is. And then you want to think about, the parts of a good story, the hero, the drama, the big lesson,
Mm.
what are the things on the outside, like what's the goal of the hero and what are the external things that are fighting against him and what are the internal struggles that he has and how can we show that in a story. And one of the biggest things is drama. And people love drama. They don't,
They do.
if it's just, if you just start out and you're like, the hero wants to, go to the store, but the car won't start, that's a really short story. But if you're like, okay, so she couldn't find her keys and her kids had hidden them in their little toy car. And then when she finally found them, you could do, it's got to go up and down. It's my point.
Yeah.
Like Game of Thrones. I mean, Game of Thrones is like constant drama. You're never safe. I mean,
No.
there people are it's just drama constantly in a very, more than soap operas even, like big drama up and
Yeah.
down constantly. And we love it. I mean, as humans, we love it because we start feeling those emotions. And that is always the goal when you're telling a story is to, evoke some emotion in your audience. And if they start feeling it and they're nodding along, then you're good. And
Yeah,
that's it.
that's the goal, right? Is to get people
Yes.
nodding. And I find myself doing that sometimes when I'm reading somebody's email that's very well written, or I get to somebody's
Yeah.
sales page and I'm just like, "Oh, yes,
Yeah.
this is so great."
Uh,
And that's honestly what you're looking for. So if you can, like, even a lot of people I know say, I don't feel like I have a story, so how do I know what to tell? Even
right.
just taking a simple one like you just did and saying, well, add the emotion behind it. Even if
Yeah.
it's not something that you think is a hugely dramatic story, add the little funny pieces in, or, add
Yeah.
the little dramatic pieces in, or even just the emotional parts in.
Yeah.
And then your little story that you didn't think was that big of a deal then becomes that. And it's all
Yeah.
dependent on who's reading it too. I mean, you might not think that it's an important story, but that doesn't mean the
Yeah.
people reading it won't.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There are lessons everywhere. That's why the little parable stories work really well because it could be going to the store. I mean, it could be searching for your keys. Everything is,
Yeah.
there's a story everywhere. And so I think that, yeah, adding in the emotion, and one way to do that is to be really descriptive. So
Mm.
when you're writing a story, think about what you can do to engage the senses of people who are reading it. What did it smell like? What did it look like? How did it feel? Using those really descriptive words help people step into that, and it's helpful because it keeps the attention, and yeah, people feel like they're part of it, and they love that. That's that's what'll keep them reading.
I love it. All right. So, what is one piece of advice or one lesson learned that you want to share with all of our viewers today? And I mean, it can be related to copywriting or it can just be, a general business or life lesson.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, if I had one piece of advice to tell even myself years ago, it would be to forget perfection. Like really, really try as much as you can to be forgiving to yourself, and people like being able to relate.
Yeah.
That's what people want. I mean, anything marketing wise, any kind of sales situation, people really just want to buy from a human. And humans are not perfect. So there you go. I mean, let go of the perfection and be who you are. I mean, just kind of come out as you are. Wear, your t-shirts because we all love getting to know people. Right? I mean, it's important. And it's funny. It's like I was just listening to somebody talk. I don't remember who it was, just in the past couple days, and they were talking about how you can tell a story or show up and kind of stick your flag in the ground and say, I really stand for this, or I really love this show. And even if people don't like that show, they will still view you as human, and that's the goal. So even
Mm-hmm.
if they're not, people don't have to love Big Bang Theory as much as you do to appreciate the fact that, like, oh, yeah, you're a real person.
Type of person.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, you're like a person,
Yeah,
and
Jacqueline
you're
and I
like,
talked about this yesterday because she's obsessed with
was it
Dunkin'
Jacqueline? And
Donuts.
you know
Yeah.
what? There it is. That's probably what it was. She's great, but it's true. It's very true, and you know, um, it doesn't have to be a big polarizing thing. It could be anything, but show your human side, because people buy from humans, and humans aren't perfect. So I think if we are just go easy on ourselves, whether it's copywriting or whatever part of business you're working on, go easy on yourself, because it's not easy to show up every day. Some days we don't feel like it. Some days we don't want to get on the live stream, and we have no energy, and we just we're dealing with something in life, and it's go easy on yourself. The house doesn't have to be perfect. The kids will be
That's
okay.
usually the first thing to go.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can
In
stick a
our world, the house
yeah.
goes
Oh,
before the other stuff.
whenever I'm busy and I'm like head down working, I'll look around like 2 days later and I'm like, oh my
Oh,
gosh,
crap.
it's bad. It's really bad. But yeah, the kids can skip a bath night and people will live.
Yep. Yeah, actually, I made the kids help me unload the dishwasher the other day because I'm like, all right, we got to get this done. We had a
Yeah,
counter full of dishes and we got a clean dishwasher right here. So they
yeah.
sat there and helped me put the dishes away. I'm like, all right, well,
Yes.
at least we're learning something while the house is messy.
Yeah, yeah. At least that is okay. Yeah, yeah, totally,
I love
totally.
it. All right, so where is the best place for people to find you?
I am on Facebook ridiculous amounts of the time. So Facebook is where you find me. I am also, oh,
I'm out.
nice.
My phone is playing Glee in the background.
This
No
is not
idea
going to
why I
be
did
a
not
sing
touch it.
along. It's not going to be a sing along.
No
You would
karaoke's
not want
happening,
that.
people.
You don't want that. Not with me. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook a lot, and on my personal profile, I don't mind connecting with people. I love it. I spend a lot of time here, and also I have a business page, and it is facebook.com/ the Karla Hoffman. I left my
The
middle name
Carla.
out, so it's not as confusing because it is such a mouthful. But yeah, I'm starting to use the business page. I am I'm working on it. But it is one of those things, we all have that, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ours
dark
too.
secret.
We the deep dark secret. Honestly,
Yes,
I think it's more of a focusing on one thing at a time, and then you can kind of spread yourself out
it
as you get
is.
things working. So
It
instead of
is.
trying to do 5 million things all at once, you get one thing working, move on to the next thing,
Move
and then when
on.
you get your business going, obviously some of those things you are going to be
Yep.
outsourced. But
Yep. I know. Are you looking
one thing
forward
at
to
a
that
time.
day? I'm like looking forward to that. I'm like,
Looking
what is going to be
forward, but
the
also
first
a little
thing?
apprehensive because,
I know.
me, control freak
Uh-huh.
here. Like, oh no,
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
else has to do something.
I know. I know. Totally. So yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. I'm here a lot.
All right,
That's where I hang out.
awesome. I love it. All right. If any of you are watching the replay and weren't able to watch live and you've got questions for Karla around copywriting and kind of telling your story or how to tell it or where, please comment below and tag Karla in the comments and
Yes.
me too, just, because.
Yeah.
And let us know, kind of what your things are about copywriting, what you're struggling with. And then also, if you want to connect with Karla, go find her on Facebook. She's pretty cool. She's also in the community, the Family Entrepreneur Life.
I
So if
am.
you're not in there, come and join us. And you can find her in the community as well. And that's at familyentrepreneurlife.com. So Karla, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on. I know we
you.
had a couple members that were really looking forward to
I'm excited.
watching the live show and kind of just gleaning all of the things from you. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge around copywriting with us.
Yes, you're so welcome. I'll be hanging out in the comments, so jump in, people. I'll be there.
All right. Awesome. Yay. All right. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a great rest of your, afternoon for us, day, evening,
Okay.
wherever you
Yeah.
are. And we'll see you again next week on our next show.